Hey, Record Loving friends, it's Brian from Tokyo Record Style. Have you been following me long enough to remember a video that I posted a few months back, maybe now, where I was bringing you along with me to a record store when they were about to drop a bunch of amazing titles from a recent collection that they acquired, and I was very excited to find a record that I never ever see, a highly beloved holy grail of mine that I was really, really excited about. And I went to the record store. I found out what time I was supposed to be there. I waited in line. There was one guy ahead of me. And I was sure that that guaranteed me a spot to get this rather obscure record. And when the doors opened and I saw it right there in the bins and I started walking right to it, the guy right in front of me, whoop, he grabbed a copy of it. Well, I was devastated because that record was one that was super, super meaningful to me. And but I was so happy for him that he got it because I loved it. And anybody who loved that record enough to wake up before me to get it certainly deserved it. And I had to congratulate the guy for getting it. But the reason that I loved it so much is because it connected me to a very dear old friend of mine, Mike Hamill. Mike was a guy who booked the Boulder Theater for many, many years. He started out postering and putting up flyers around town, and then he worked in the box office, and then he worked in the bar, and in a short amount of time he was the talent buyer at the Boulder Theater, and he lived upstairs from me, and he got me into a ton of shows, and he became a great, great friend of mine, and he championed so many musicians in the Boulder music community, and it was a thriving time, and I think a lot of people owe Mike a great deal of debt for supporting them and helping, and for him to helping to spread their music. And he was my buddy. He was my best buddy, and we'd go to shows all the time together, and he'd always invite me backstage, and I didn't deserve to be there. Neither of us really deserved to be back there, but he just worked his way into this scene. I couldn't believe it. It was really, really cool to see him do that. And I went to his wedding, and I was part of the wedding party, and it was at LBI, Long Beach Island in New Jersey. He's an East Coaster, and his whole world of people are New Yorkers and New Englanders, and they holiday in New Jersey. And I went out there, and I got a taste of that, and it was really cool. And Mike, interestingly, was crazy for shellfish and bizarre creatures of the deep. He loved the strangest of sea creatures, lobsters and clams and oysters. And his social media feed was filled with bizarre things that he would meet, canned sardines and all kinds of wild stuff. And he would get his taste buds in a frenzy if he knew that he was going to be getting a big portion of oysters one night. And it was a funny dude, really, really funny guy. And one of the bands that he turned me on to was Ween. And Ween's Mollusk was the record that I was so excited to see drop at Kichijoji's HMV, and the one that got away from me. And the reason that I wanted it so bad was because that it connected me to my very, very dear friend Mike, and because he turned me on to that record, and we discovered it together, and he would sing all the songs in this melodramatic way, and it was a theatrical way that he appreciated this music. And I just have the fondest memories of him getting off on this album, and we loved it together. And so when I saw an OG drop in the wild, I was so excited, and poof, it got away from me, the one that literally got away. And I was so devastated and bummed out and happy all in the same moment for the guy who got it, that I invited him outside, and I made him pose for me, and we were both just so happy for him. And bless his heart, when he went and grabbed it, I said, "Oh no, you're getting the record that I wanted." He was conflicted, and I could see, I said, no, but I could see he was like, "Maybe you should have it." And I just thought, oh, that's so sweet. So a great memory, and to be honest, I dodged a bullet because it was a very, very, very expensive record, and I would find another one, okay? So the quest would continue. Now, this record is really fun because it's Ween's maybe, I don't know, fifth, sixth album. I'm all in on Ween. I started with Chocolate and Cheese. I know some of you scored this Rhino deal that came out a few years ago. Here is not an original press. I've had an original press on Grand Royale. That was their original label, but I had a copy that was really, really noisy, and I traded it in for one on Plain Records, which sounds really fantastic. This album has so many killer tracks on it. Spirit of 76, Roses Are Free, Baby Bitch, absolute killer record. If I'm not mistaken, the Mollusk comes after that one, and maybe we get Quebec next, maybe we get White Pepper, or maybe we get 12 Country Classics, or I can't quite remember. The first Ween record is God, Ween, Satan, and it's the only one that I don't have in the collection. And but my love for this band is really deep. After God, Ween, Satan, I think comes The Pod, which I have both on LP and I also have on CD that was gifted to me recently by my homie Grasshopper. Thanks so much. He actually sent this to me, and I thought, what the hell, let's take one more look for this online, and I found a dead stock copy of it. And so very stoked to have Pod for the car and Pod for the turntable. I showed you my copy of Quebec. I have La Cucaracha, their maybe last full-on studio effort, and then odds and ends that they put together for Record Store Day last year. And I was very, very happy to get this record last year. It was the one record on last year's Record Store Day that I was really keen to get. It's just odds and ends from other eras, and you can kind of get a sense of, by the taste of the song, from which album it came. And really groovy one with some crazy artwork on it. And we haven't had, this came out in 2005, and we haven't had a Ween record since this one. So I'd love to get another one. Ween has got a couple of great, interesting albums that don't quite fall in the, like, squarely in the obscure indie discography of Ween. One of them is 12 Country Classics, and this was recorded with some amazing sessions player in Nashville. I'd love to get this on wax, but it's got some country and western songs. That's a real valiant attempt at a unique genre, and they take the Shit Creek Boys, the players who play mandolin and guitar on this album, and they take them on tour, and they go to Toronto. I talked about the Toronto album live in Toronto a few videos ago, and there's a bunch of live albums. Another one is Painting the Town Brown. These are sort of odds and ends from 90 to 98. Cat's Cradle, a live show from 92, and there's nobody at this show. It's like a little tiny bar show, and it's very, very cool. I thought it would be so lo-fi that it almost wouldn't be enjoyable, but it's so fun to listen to. And I've got more Ween and more side project Moist Boys. And oh, that reminds me, one of the greatest drops on the Record Store Day list is Freeman. I'm so excited about Freeman. I got this record in the digital era. I want to say 2006 maybe. It was a record that I never owned on physical media, but I bought it from the iTunes store. And that's how I bought those records in that little era. It was a short-lived couple-year era. I bought probably 30 or 40 or maybe even 50 digital-only records that I never owned on physical media, but I'm so very excited to get this record on wax when it comes out. I really hope I can get a copy of it. Freeman, this is a sleeper. You absolutely ought to listen to this record. It's really, really fantastic. And it was at a moment where Ween kind of split up, and Aaron Freeman, Gene Ween, made a really amazing confessional record. It's very personal. It's very beautiful. It has sensibilities of David Bowie and of Pink Floyd and probably Nick Cave and all kinds of interesting stuff, and some more weird sort of Weenish type stuff. It's very, very groovy. And I'm very excited to get that one, as well as the live record that's coming out live in Europe in 1990. This should be really good. If those other live records, Painting the Town Brown, Cat's Cradle, Live at Toronto, if that's any indicator of the quality of this upcoming live in 1990 in Europe, it's going to be a really, really great record. And that is the era of God, Ween, Satan, for their first record, which is so fun and so interesting and so good. I'm very, very excited to get it. Unfortunately, it's going to be rather expensive. But as far as the Record Store Day drops go of this year, April 18th, 2026, those are the two records I'm very, very excited about. The Freeman record and the Ween live in Europe, 1990. So I'm really waiting for a press of the Mollusk to come out. It really needs a repress. I was really bummed that I lost that Ween record, but I want to share one more part of this story. Another friend of mine, another very dear friend of mine, actually the godfather of my daughter, he's another really great friend of mine. His name's Jim. There's Jim and I on the streets of Tokyo taking pictures. Jim with his monopod and his cigarette, his war photographer look. I've got a couple of Leicas hanging around me, and we are just two peas in a pod, and we have some great memories. And my Tokyo Record Style server is actually hosted on his machine. And he's my tech guru, and he's just a brilliant dude, and he's so fun and so interesting. And his wife has some business in Tokyo, and she comes here every once in a while. And she told me a few months ago, she said, "Hey, I'm coming." And Jim messaged me and said, "Hey, I'm going to send something with my wife, and I want you to open it. And if you wouldn't mind, it's like, I don't know if you'll remember this, but there's a funny gag that I want to send you, and I want to see your reaction to when you open it." And I said, "Oh God, that sounds fun, but I don't know if I can, what if I don't remember it? What if I don't know what it is? Anyway, his wife came and she said, hey, come over to the place. I got an Airbnb and Jim sent this record along. So I go over and we fire up the camera and I open it up and he said, I don't know if you'll remember this, but I just thought this was too hilarious. So I open the record and I look at it and I say, oh, Technotronic. Okay. Featuring Felly, Pump Up the Jam, Pump It Up. Pump It Up. Yeah, I remember it. He said, don't you remember the night that we went to karaoke and you were so loaded and you were singing this song all night long? And I said, I don't remember, but yeah, it sounds a little familiar. And I turned it over and it's a copy of the Mollusk on wax. God bless you, Jim. He sent me and gifted me a copy of this amazing, amazing record. And Technotronic was just a Trojan horse to get this record into my collection. Thank you so much, Jim. This record from beginning to end is so good. It's a concept record. I can't even really tell you exactly what the story is. It's got a nautical motif and it's about a guy who loses love and goes on a pirate adventure. All the songs are sort of intertwined, but not really. But it's a really, really fun record. And there's tons of production and a sort of Phil Spector wall of sound on it. And there's so many great solos by Diener. And it's great. It's from beginning to end. It's so good. It's a musical odyssey. And it's so appropriate that it's called The Mollusk and that it has this nautical theme because it feels like you're on a great adventure at sea. But when you listen to this record. And the cover here is done by Storm Thurgeson of Hypnosis, and he loved the record and he loved the music so much that he did some additional work that was related to the album posters, and I'm not totally sure what else. It starts out with a funny sort of vaudevillian thing that sort of sets the stage, dancing in the show tonight. It's sort of it sounds like a holiday song, like a children's song, and it goes into the Mollusk, which is just a full-fledged assault of musical soundscape. It's so fun. Polka Dot Tail has got a ripping solo in it. I'll Be Your Johnny on the Spot's got a whole bunch of interesting synth work, and so many points in the album. It sort of sounds as if it's lo-fi, and then this very, very rich and screaming tones come out, and you realize that all the while you've been listening to something kind of buried, and then there's a whole nother layer of music right on top of it. Mutilated Lips, I think a song about a psychedelic experience. The Blarney Stone, aye, the Blarney Stone brings a tear to me eye. It's Gonna Be Alright, Baby, a beautiful ballad. The Golden Eel is a masterpiece. Cold Blows in the Wind, a sort of another sea shanty. Pink Eye is a kind of a cult classic. It doesn't have any words, an instrumental piece that just has the lyric, and then Waving My Dick in the Wind. It's still got some Ween character. Buckingham Green is the masterpiece. It's one of the best songs on the album, along with The Mollusk, who they both claim that these are their favorite songs and this is their favorite album, both Dean and Gene Ween. And then Ocean Man, which was made famous apparently by SpongeBob SquarePants. I didn't even really know about it. I loved this album before it found its way to SpongeBob, but it's so good. And She Wanted to Leave is the final track, and it signifies that your end of this odyssey, and it goes back into the reprise of Dancing Into the Show Tonight, and produced by Andrew Weiss, who is one of the members of Ween, along with Claude Coleman, Mean Ween, who's on the cover of Pod, Glenn McKellen, whose son is the one singing on Dancing on the Show Tonight, and Charlie McKellen, that's the son's name. Bill Fowler, and I think some of the guys from the Shit Creek Boys, maybe. I'm not totally sure who's all on this record, but I love this record, and I love that my friend Jim surprised me with this record and gifted me this incredibly nice and highly coveted record. This is not an original press, also on Plain Records, but I have a feeling it's not going to sound better than this. I'm sure the OG is really nice, but if I compare it to my chocolate and cheese OG, it might be really noisy. So I was very happy to have this. There are not so many of these. They're pretty rare, rarer than hen's teeth. And it connects me to both my friend Jim and to my friend Mike, who basically turned me onto this album. Jim also is from Pennsylvania, which is where the Ween guys are from. So it's just serendipity all around. So I was worried that somebody else was going to send me a copy of Mollusk. I actually had a scare that another one was coming in the mail. So nobody send me any more Mollusks. I got a lot of wonderful sentiments from people saying, "Oh, I wish you got that record. That's so cruel that one guy ahead of you got it before you did." But it was fun too, because there was a lot of comments about people saying that good on you that you were actually happy for the guy, and I genuinely was. So congrats to my buddy who I photographed, who got the Ween record, who I hope to stay in touch with. I gotta remember his name, and to me too, because we both got our Ween records, and it all worked out in the end. Okay. Thanks for letting me share that one with you. I'm going to go have a Ween day, and I'm going to look forward to Record Store Day, and hopefully I will get a copy of that live in Europe, and definitely a copy of that Freeman. That one's going to be the one to get for me. So thanks for tuning in for another edition of Tokyo Record Style. Until next time, I'll see you out there at the record store. Bye.